Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daily Tri preview. This time we are doing 70.3 St. George, third race of the Pro Series this weekend, and I'm lucky enough to have on with me Justin Riele, who is actually going to be racing. He came 8th place at Oceanside, and I couldn't think of anybody better to get on and explain how this race is going to unfold. I might argue with him a little bit, but you know what? I have no grounds for that because I'm not in the race, but I'm so excited to hear what you have to say about it. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Travis. A little nervous to make some bold race predictions when I'm in the race myself, but excited to be here and I won't hold back. I'll just share what I think, and I might be a little biased towards myself because you got to believe if you want to achieve a good result.
I think it's so awesome. We were talking a little bit before we hit record. I don't think a lot of other guys would have done this, and a lot of pros don't like making their predictions because don't want to put their names out there. And it's totally understandable. So I appreciate you doing this. This is gonna be fun. As always, let's kick it off with the swim first, but actually we're going to take a look at the course map so everybody watching can get an idea of the race course itself. Yeah, pretty infamous race course. We've all seen 70.3 Worlds here and the World Champs here. Take us through the swim. Anything special about the swim?
Not really. I'm interested actually to see how they start us. But it's, pretty standard swim, cold water, wetsuit legal. And with this many athletes in a really strong swim field, it should stay pretty close together, similar to the Oceanside Harbor swim.
Pretty good visibility like that time early in the morning. Are you swimming into the sun? Like, are you considering any of those goggle choices, stuff like that?
I like to make that decision, game time decision in the morning, just based on the weather. But I think it's going to be a pretty sunny day, probably tinted goggles and
Okay.
yeah, swim hard.
Right on. And then we saw some people before, I think, at the World Champs race, like putting on warm gear before heading out onto the bike. Do you think you'd consider that, or this time of year it's fine?
Supposed to be really hot and windy on Saturday, high of 87 with 20 to 30-mile-an-hour gusts that are only going to get stronger as the day goes on for the amateurs. So definitely no warm gear needed on Saturday.
All right. Okay, we'll kick it off here onto the bike course. And yeah, pretty tough one, hey? But I'm sure you like that and the other strong bikers in the field. Anything that you've raced here a few times before, anything that you remember and that you'll be paying close attention to on the bike course?
Yeah, I've raced here a couple times as an amateur, and including the year where it was the full Ironman World Championship and one of the 70.3 Worlds. It's a tough bike course. It's rolling, really honest, some nice smooth surfaces for the most part, and obviously ending with the infamous Snow Canyon Snow Canyon climb as you can see here. It's just epic, and it pitches up towards the end where there's an opportunity to drop some guys if you haven't already, and then a really long, fast descent into town where we'll likely hit some of a headwind. Where you can make up a lot of time if you just hammer that descent. So it's a tough bike course, but the fastest times can be, just around 2 hours. I think Magnus Ditlev went under 2 hours at 70.3 World. So it's fast, but it's tough.
Do you think the descent is more important than that Snow Canyon climb, or where are you going to look to push?
I think it depends on your strengths as a rider and how heavy you are. I'm a little bigger than most of these triathletes at 160 pounds. So I'm not too worried about the descent, especially in windy conditions. I think that plays to bigger guys like Sam Long and Jackson and I's strengths. But you got to be able to get up the climb with the group, or you're going to lose time on that descent for sure.
And your gearing choice for this? What are you going with?
I have a 2x5644 with 1128 in the back.
Okay.
It's all rubber ran, so I don't have many other options right now, but I think that's going to be sufficient. It was the same as I ran in Oceanside, which actually has a couple of steeper climbs than the St. George course.
All right. Awesome. And then on to the run. Pretty fast one from what I've heard. Nothing too difficult about this one?
I can't actually speak for this one because this is a brand new run course. Some people might not know, but 70.3 St. George run course has now changed 3 different times. I've done the other 2, but not this one. So this one seems a little bit easier than the other 2 courses. You don't go back up onto Red Bluffs like you used to with that long, famous steep descent where we saw Lionel racing against Sam.
Oh man. Okay.
Still my pre-race motivation YouTube video that I watched before like every race at 5 a.m. That last 5K was just epic, and I'm sure every triathlete fan has seen that video, but this will be a little different. It'll be the same as 2022 70.3 Worlds, where you go into that golf course and you basically run plus or minus 2% with a 2-loop out and back course.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you for that. Let's dive into the swim. When you first saw this start list, we've just got 15 guys here. Sorry for anybody that we missed out on, by the way. It's hard to choose 15. There's a lot of great guys here. But when you first saw that start list, Were you surprised? Were you expecting it to be this strong? Yeah, talk us through that.
Yeah, I think the big news that everyone's been talking about is that Lionel's no longer on the start list with an injury, unfortunately. And there's been a few other guys that have dropped off, mostly because they put their name on the start list because they wanted to, I think, have a backup if Ironman Texas didn't go well.
Mm.
I think Robert Wilco is one of those athletes who DNF'd Texas, but maybe showing up this week. But it's a strong start list. And I think, on the outside looking in, you might think, oh, it's just Sam and Jackson and maybe Mark or Max Spurl kind of hunting for the podium, but there's definitely some guys on here that could give them all a run for their money. And the depth for, those later money slot placings or world slots between, I'd say, 5th through 15th is incredibly deep. There's a lot of guys that are going to be just really solid across the board swim, bike, run.
That's one thing I forgot to mention. How many slots are there for Worlds here?
There's going to be 4 world slots.
Okay, it's quite a few. All right, and some guys
I,
have
I,
already
I
got them.
expect it to roll. I expect it to roll down to probably 11th place, based on who has them so far. So great opportunity for some people. This is always where I was hoping to grab one, and I'm lucky to have grabbed the last slot in Oceanside, so I don't have that pressure here at St. George.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear how you think you're going to do. So let's take it off into the swim. Who do you think is going to be leading out that front pack?
So a name not on here is Magnus Manor. He won the Oceanside swim and just really drove the pace. So he'll be driving it. And then I think Mark Dubrick from this list of 15 is going to be in that front pack for sure. Nick Quinet, just came off a really strong swim and podium at St. Anthony's Olympic last weekend. Both of those guys raced last weekend. Mark won the race and Nick was third. So super, super strong swimmers. I think you're going to have Gillespie in that group. You're going to have Spurl, who came out right next to me in Oceanside, me and him kind of right behind those Mark and Quinet and Magnus Manor group. And Lagerstrom will be in there for sure. Mickey Tagholt will be right around there, I think, in that front group, chasing Wilco as well, Robert Wilco. So a lot of really strong swim firepower here. Costas is a really consistent swimmer, the Frenchman. We have a joke with the guys staying at the house, like anybody from France is just, they're going to be good these days.
Yeah.
Simon Shai should be right there as well. Strong swimmer. I don't think he'll be driving the front, but he'll be in the mix.
Okay.
Metzler's an interesting one. He's been a little bit off, as everybody knows. He's dealt with some injuries and a couple of bad races, but it depends what version of Metzler we get. I know he's put in a really strong month of training, so he'll be an interesting one. I honestly can't make any predictions for him across the swim, bike, or the run. That guy is a guy who could be, 4th or 5th place here on his best day and 20th on his worst day. So who knows where he'll land.
Yeah.
Ben Hamilton, strong racer, I believe, from New Zealand. Is that right?
Yeah. New Zealand.
He'll probably be, I think, a little bit back chasing. So I think you've got him in the right spot. Probably Jackson Laundry right around there. And then losing time, of course, will be Sam Long and Michael Weiss. Probably, the question will be the gap to Sam. So I've got a buddy who's going to be out there spectating with a whiteboard, who's going to be holding up the gap to Sam for that front swim group, just wondering how long we're going to be able to hang on until he bridges up. Michael Weiss will be a big wild card because if he swims with Sam, he'll be in the race, is my prediction. And if he doesn't swim with Sam, I don't think he'll be in the race. So it'll be an interesting one because if he's able to bridge up with Sam and Jackson, super strong bike runner, but traditionally has lost so much time on the swim.
Do you think it's going to be different for Sam, this one in Oceanside, or something very similar?
I think it's going to be pretty similar. I think with the depth of having a 60-person start list, it's just totally different. And Sam even talked about this in his recent YouTube video. Like, you get pulled along in that current, and he's not swimming by himself. He'll be with a bunch of guys in the middle of the group, and I predict he's, not any more than 2.5 minutes down from the front. The big wild card here is Jackson Laundry. We know in his past form, he swam with the likes of Alistair Brownlee in the very front of the group. He just hasn't been able to show that in the last couple races for some reason. So I would love for Jackson to get out of the water right next to me so we could just start doing work on the bike. But unfortunately, I guess my prediction is that he doesn't. He comes back 1 to 2 minutes back, and he ends up kind of mostly coming up with Sam.
Yeah, very good. I'm actually excited to watch Ben Hamilton. He was third at Ironman New Zealand, and he's an excellent bike runner as well. My guess is, he'll probably come in and around those two guys. So it'll be interesting to see if he tags on along and makes his way up to the front with you guys. How long do you think you're holding them off?
That's the big question. It's like, who in this front swim group has the bike legs or wants to roll the dice to try to hold off the likes of, say, Jackson, Ben Hamilton, or Sam Long, Michael Weiss? Like, Don't know if it will be me. I won't say it won't be. Maybe I'll go to the front and start hammering, but I know if I go to the front, I'm going to be attacking. I'm not going to just be pulling 10 guys along that can all outrun me. So it'll be interesting. Gillespie kind of has a little bit of a knack for going to the front and pushing hard. Spurl has shown he has really strong bike legs. Dubrick, who could win the race overall, might want to just hold off that gap. But my prediction is it doesn't take as long as people might think for Sam and Jackson to close that gap.
All right, so let's dive into this and organize it a little bit more. Um, let's start with Mark right at the front. He had the fastest bike split at St. Anthony's. Do you think he is holding on this time? He didn't hold on in Oceanside, right? He fell back. Do you think he is this time around, holding on to you?
You know, I'm gonna go with no, only because I'm gonna do absolutely everything I can, including maybe, sacrificing a little bit of my run legs to get rid of Mark, because he's a guy that I can only beat if I have a big gap on him. And I think Sam and Jackson feel the same way. Like they don't want to get off the bike with Mark Dubrick. He's a runner. So I think it's just going to be those guys are going to intentionally just make it so hard on Mark that it's going to be tough. He did ride over 340 watts last weekend at St. Anthony's for an hour, which is unbelievable. And he barely didn't hold on at Oceanside. I mean, I got a front row seat at when those guys got dropped, and it was tiny margins of maybe luck or sheer will or positioning. So I think he's got a shot for sure to be in the mix there if his bike legs show up. But again, for the sake of my race predictions, I'm going to hope that he doesn't.
Love it. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a quick question there, quick break.
Yeah.
With Race Ranger wasn't in Oceanside, it will now be in St. George. It's probably gonna make a big difference on the bike. What I've heard a lot of people saying, and we've said on our podcast too, is that sometimes it actually helps people get a draft because people who have sat further behind now can go right up to 12 meters. Did you experience that before?
In Oceanside, I didn't. I think
Okay.
those front group or two, you're riding with a lot of guys who are super experienced and are riding right at 12 to 15 meters, at least most of the race. I think it'll make a difference in the mid pack placings where some
Okay.
of the guys maybe ride a little bit more cautiously or there's a little bit more variability. But when you have refs on you all day and you're going at that speed, like you don't have a choice but to, take a risk and sit at 13, 14 meters, say most of the day. So I don't anticipate it making a huge difference, but I do hope it just keeps everybody honest and there's no false penalties given out or vice versa.
Awesome. All right, so we got you charging up the front here. Let's go, Nicholas.
Yeah, I
He's
think he's
pretty
going to
much.
be right in there. I think like this whole front group without, I expect Simon Shai to get dropped pretty quickly from that front group, starting to lose time. I expect Lagerstrom to probably not be able to hold on with that front group. I'm not sure, he just hasn't done that much 70.3 racing. He's admitted he hasn't spent that much time on his TT bike. I think Costas will be right in the mix chasing, but again, if the likes of Gillespie, Spurl, and I decide to push and make it tough, I think it's going to split out on that first climb at mile 7 pretty quickly here. So
Okay.
really, I think the race doesn't start until Jackson and Sam hit the front of the bike, which I expect to happen somewhere between mile 10 and 20.
Wow.
Um,
Pretty
and
quick.
I think until then, it's going to be a little uneventful and everyone's going to be kind of all together probably.
All right. Do you think Mark then still drops back even if those guys join onto you just off?
I think he's in the mix as long as he possibly can,
Okay.
and definitely will be able to stay in the mix until a big giant move is made, probably by the likes of Sam. And I just don't know whether that'll happen at the mile 20 climb or the other bump that we saw in the course preview around mile 30, or if it won't happen until Snow Canyon. Um, Obviously, what I hope happens is that the group just shatters early, like it did in Oceanside. And I predict, the only guys that'll be able to stay with Sam are Jackson, Max Spurl, and I. Again, this is simply based on one race at Oceanside. That was the group of 4 plus Lionel. And then you've got a really strong group still making, losing some time, but not a ton with Cornette, Gillespie, Dubrick, Mickey Tagholt, Wilco, Costas, probably Hamilton, all those guys still riding really well just behind. That'd be my prediction.
All right. So I'm going to throw them in there so that people see. So that is how you think the end of the ride is going to be, something like that, eh?
Yeah, I think you got to put Sam and Jackson on the right of me and Spurl in that front group.
Yes.
The order of the riding does matter.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think you're gonna basically have, I mean, Spurl's strong. I think something not talked about in Oceanside was that he was doing more work, arguably, than Jackson in that front group, and
Wow.
probably would have gotten dropped after a Lionel and Jackson got dropped. So just incredibly strong rider. I think I'm the wild card in that group as to whether or not I'll make it again because I barely made it in Oceanside and I was dying. I
Yeah.
think Mickey Tagholt could definitely make that group, making it a
Okay.
group of five instead of four. He's probably the one that I would say, depending on how he's recovering from a crash that I saw on Instagram, he actually crashed in St. George on a training ride, and today was his first ride in a week. So he might be a bit of a wild card. And then the Dubrick Quinnett having raced just 3 days ago,
Yeah.
really, really hard effort. You just don't know how they're going to show up either.
Ah, super interesting. Man, sad to hear that about Mickey because he was fourth at 70.3 Worlds here, I believe, and then he was sixth at another time at 70.3 Worlds. Like, he's a really great athlete, and from what I've seen of him the last couple of years, he is the most unlucky man I have seen in triathlon, where it's just random mechanicals, unfortunate last-minute sicknesses, and everything. So hopefully he makes it there and is firing because I think he's a good addition, a good all-rounder. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting having Nicholas Quinnett up here. He's based out of Boulder, I believe, and he's actually chasing the Olympics. Not a lot of people know that, but he's chasing that for South Africa while doing this middle distance racing. I think he's definitely one to watch as well. Other than that, yeah, I totally agree with the way you've got this laid out. I think Wilkowiecki might be a little bit of a wild card, like you said earlier. I think he's got a really good bike leg. We saw in Nice. We've never seen him at a 70.3 with like as deep a field as this before, so he might be a better biker than a lot of us anticipate. But other than that, I
Yeah,
think
he's a big wild card coming off of a DNF at Texas, right? He
true.
has the pedigree to go like podium or win this race. It's just always hard to say, like, has he mentally recovered? Has he physically recovered from, I don't know actually how far he made it in Texas or when he pulled off, but if he did the entire 112-mile bike ride, that's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
He, I don't believe he did. Believe he pulled out after the swim, so I think he should be fresh if he's there.
that'll be interesting.
Bike for show, run for dough, Justin. Well, who have we got here? There's a lot of run for dough kind of guys in this field. This is
There
hard to,
really is.
yeah.
There really is. There's a lot of guys that are going to throw down some nasty run splits, I think, if they don't blow their legs out on the bike. So, let's start at the front of the race. I think we're going to have that front group getting off the bike together. I think Sam and Jackson, as we saw on Oceanside, I think it's their race to lose. I think they're going to end up going 1-2 if they can build that gap on Dubrick and the rest of the strong runners. So I predict Sam and Jackson sort of start running away from it. I'm hoping to hang in there with Max Spurl. Like in Oceanside, I was pretty smashed and he just ran away from me, but we'll be losing time. And then I think the guys that are run into the race or into a podium position are going to be Mark Dubrick. I think Costas will be in the mix. Mickey Tagholt for sure, I think could run into a podium position or definitely a top five. And Quinnett's a bit of a wild card. I think we've seen different types of performances from him, somewhere in the 113 to 117 range,
Okay.
depending on the day. So he'll be strong. Um, and then the other guys I basically wrote down like could be fast. So Hamilton could be fast, Costas could be fast, Wilco could be fast, and Weiss and Lagerstrom, if they can get into the race and stay and keep the gap small, could be running well. So it'll be interesting. I think we'll probably see the likes of a couple of 111 to 113s, amongst some of those guys. But I think really the most of the money spots that are going to be decided between, say, the fourth and 10th position will be decided whether you're running 113 versus 116. I think the gaps are going to be small, especially in that second group of guys.
All right. Give me Justin Metzler. Like you said, he could be anywhere in this race. But we've seen him, win 70.3 Oregon before, and he was flying at that race. So, yeah, I'm excited to watch Justin. Are you outrunning Justin in this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna put myself outrunning Justin Metzler in this race. That's
Okay.
an interesting one. I outran him in Indian Wells, but it's a tough data point 'cause it's probably the worst performance he's had. And he's run his high end, I think 111, 112, much beyond what I've ever ran. But yeah, you got to bet on yourself always.
All right.
No shame to Metzler. Like I hope he runs well and has a turnaround, but I also hope I beat him by one position.
I love it. If your legs are pretty smashed coming off the bike, what's your run split? Yeah, Max ran a few minutes quicker than you, I believe, at Oceanside. What are you aiming for?
It's always hard to say. It just depends if
Yeah.
I'm with Sam and Jackson and how that gap looks. I'd love for it to play out like Oceanside and run a 118, but if I don't make that group, I better be running 116. So I would love to PR. I've never broken 118, so I'm gonna put my bet is gonna be that I run 117.
All right. So now, if Sam and Jackson off the bike with you and Max coming into this run, how much of a gap do they need on Mark Dubrick on his day on a good run, like we saw him at 70.3 at Indian Wells?
I think they need 2 minutes.
Two.
Sam and Jackson are phenomenal runners. I don't see them running any slower than 112. That ride was so hard in Oceanside. This run course isn't as hard as it used to be. I don't see Mark running under 110 here, especially if he's gotten dropped by the likes of Sam and Jackson and how hard this bike course is. It's just going to be too tough to have fresh run legs.
All right. Interesting. Okay, that's perfect. I mean, just going pretty simple. You seem like you've got it nailed. Let's see how you feel about the predictions, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little biased, right? Because it's like we're coming off of Oceanside, which is 1 month ago,
Yeah.
and the dynamics, I believe, are going to be so similar, but you never really know who shows up and what can happen. But I guess my predictions are really based on how that race unfolded and expecting the same thing to happen, which, we know it always doesn't.
Yeah. How much do you think like a month of training or, just under a month, few weeks now, would make to the dynamics? Like, is it changing somebody's performance?
I think it's only changing your performance if you in a negative way, frankly. I think with the exception of Max Spurl, who went straight to Cedar City and did a 3-week block at altitude at 7,000 feet and is just coming down to St. George tomorrow, his performance could be elevated, but it also could screw him up. Braden Curry just DNF Texas after spending 3 weeks in Boulder
Yeah.
after Oceanside. So the altitude I've heard is a bit of a gamble to do that between races like this, but I think it's a gamble worth taking, and it could be something that elevates Max to the front of the race. I think the other variables, like I said, are that Mark and Quinnett just raced last weekend. Sam Long had his trip to Singapore and then came back and just did basically a 10-day training block. So I think the margins are small. And for the most part, usually at this time of year, it's kind of in the negative direction. I think I'm kind of in the exact same spot I was going into Oceanside from a fitness perspective. And I haven't raced.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's such a good insight that we don't always get to hear unless we talk to a pro. So thanks for that. All right, we're diving in the finish. So I've gone ahead and made my predictions here, and I want you to argue with them. Yeah. So go Jackson Laundry first, Sam second, Mark third, Mickey fourth, Max fifth. I've got you behind Max, so I know hopefully you argue with me on that one, and then Nick in seventh. But yeah, I had to pick Jackson for the win on this one, just because Sam I don't think's had the training build up, and personally I thought Jackson in between Oceanside and this one would have got a little bit of a benefit from taking a few weeks just to know now what he needs to do to beat Sam. And he just posted a YouTube video saying Ironman Pro Series brick workout, and if that was a little bit of a hint, I think, to maybe us seeing Jackson chasing the Pro Series this year. So I think he's really going to be, he really wants this one. So that's why I'm going Jackson for the win. And I would agree with you that Mark, I think, probably tries to hold on the bike, keep as close as possible, especially after the confidence of St. Anthony's, but just a little too far away to catch Sam and Jackson on the run. All
I
right,
like it.
you go.
Yeah, so I mean, I think picking Jackson for the win is not a bad pick at all. I went back and forth between him and Sam. Ultimately, I just picked Sam. I think he's fired up. He's on an absolute tear right now between Oceanside, Singapore. He's hungry for this win, and I think he probably learned his lesson and not throw down the power that he did doing all the work in Oceanside. And I think he'll be a smarter racer in this race and make Jackson take some turns, push me to the front. Like if and when we get away, let's say, I think he's going to save his run legs and just throw down a nasty run split like we saw in Miami. So that's my prediction. Although I like Jackson a lot. I think he's a really strong racer, and we've seen some top performances from him. So I won't be surprised if he outruns Sam, but my pick is on Sam, I think, just with a slight edge.
So
I've got,
yeah. So Jackson in second then.
Jackson in second. Yeah, I got Sam first, Jackson second. In third, I actually have Spurl. So the only reason for that is like the altitude camp, not having raced, knowing that again these are based on a prediction that front bike group really gets away and Oceanside.
Yep.
And if that happens, Spurl's going to have the gap to be able to run 113, 115 and secure that last podium spot. I just don't know if Mark is going to be as fresh as he needs to be, both on the bike and to run a 110 versus a 113, say. And I think that's going to be the deciding factor to make the podium. So I've got Mark in fourth, pretty similar to what you have. And then I've got myself in fifth, again, based on getting away from a guy like Mickey Tagholt, who, as I said, unfortunately just crashed. I just think he's a wild card. I think he's a guy that could race for the win, to be perfectly honest. But
Yep.
On a bad day, if he doesn't make that front group and struggles with his crash, then, I've got him in sixth right behind me. And, I fully recognize for me to get a fifth, which is kind of my dream day, is going to take probably a front pack bike with Sam with a gap and a run PR. So a lot has to go right, but fifth is the pipe dream and top 8 is kind of the goal. In sixth, I've got Mickey. In seventh, I've got Costas, who I'm not sure you have on here.
Yeah, he was just outside of it for me. I looked up his performance in Valencia. He ran a 2-minute 70.3 PR on the run, 111 there, front pack swim. He was really good. So
yeah, and then I've got basically Costas, Hamilton, Quinnett, Wilco, all. I mean, again, like those fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th positions are going to be tiny margins. Is my big prediction.
all right, and they're going to be fighting for those world slots. So should still be fun to watch back there.
Definitely.
Well, all right, fifth place then. I think that is going to be fun for everybody now. I think it's going to be tracking you now that you've put your name on the line here, and I think it's going to be fun to see if you pull it off and get that front pack bike split. But yeah, anything else you think's going to shape up here? Any interesting things that could happen?
Not necessarily. There's a couple wild cards on the start list that we, are not included in this top 15 here,
Yeah.
that are always interesting to watch, but I think it's going to be a great race, and it's all going to come down to that, how the bike group splits apart, and do the wins, really shatter groups, and then who's able to recover off of, now what we're kind of in the meat of the season, you could say. So it's getting exciting.
We saw a lot of people have a tough run out in Oceanside, I think because of just how hard that bike course is and people trying to stay as close as they can to the front. I think you mentioned it's going to be hot. It's going to be windy. We saw what that did to people at Texas. A lot of DNFs there. I think it could be a little bit of carnage as well, which is always fun for us to watch. And you poor guys out there racing it.
I think it's a good prediction, Travis. I mean, I hope it's not me, but I'm going to put myself out there and race the way I race, which is go for fifth, go for broke, and hope to still have some run legs. But, somebody's going to be walking. That's for sure.
Are you going to be thinking cooling a lot on that run?
I think so. I live in Las Vegas, so I train in these conditions just like St. George year round, and I'm not too worried about it. I can sit in the hot tub doing a little heat prep, but nothing crazy. I think by the time we're finished racing, it'll be not even 11 a.m. So I don't think it'll play into a, like it did at Ironman Texas necessarily, but I think it'll be a factor.
All right. Finishing remarks, Justin, tell us what's your goal in pro triathlon? You've only been doing it a couple of years now, and where can people follow you?
Yeah, I mean, my goal in pro triathlon is keep having fun, keep getting better, become the best athlete I can be. That's all it ever has been since I started the sport in 2016, doing 5 hours and 39 minutes in my first 70.3.
Wow.
So, I've raced this as an amateur, but this is my first time ever racing St. George as a professional. And it's just cool to even be in the mix and be, one of the top 10 ranked guys going in. And yeah, my goal is just to stay healthy, keep chipping away, and enjoy the process of racing. And you can follow me on Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel as well, that my buddy Kyle here helps me out with. He's also racing St. George, so that'll be fun. But yeah, feel free to shoot me a message if you have any questions, and hope to meet some of you at St. George.
Heck yeah. And 70.3 Worlds, you've already qualified later in the year. What's your dream result there?
Oh, I don't have one yet. Just again, it's all about improving my run right now. So I guess dream result would be swim front pack, bike front pack, run 115, and wherever I land, I land. And that's kind of been my approach to the sport right now.
Heck yeah. Thank you so much. Wow, that was fun. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for having me.